All right, so here's a 3-step process that you can use to go from being dirt poor to being not dirt poor in 3 to 5 years. And I know this works because this is the game plan that I followed about 12 years ago. If you remember, I was $80,000 in debt. I had about $2,000 saved to my name, so not a lot to work with. And I was living in the back of a van. So very humble beginnings. And then within 3 to 5 years, we were able to amass a couple $1 million worth of assets. So here's exactly how we did it. It's a 3-step process. I'm going to keep it very high level and vague for reasons of general applicability. Because if I get too specific and into the weeds, it's not going to be pertinent for your situation. And I want you to be able to take these ideas and apply them. So number one is you need to cut expenses ruthlessly. You need to live below your means. And this is something that I didn't understand. This is why I had $80,000 of debt, is because I was out there subsidizing my lifestyle with credit cards and unpaid bills, right? And so the number one thing you have to learn is that wealth is the ratio between what you make and what you keep. So if you make $1 million a year, but you spend $1 million a year, then you have no money in reserves. You're functionally poor, right? So wealth is, the way I like to think of it, is how much living expenses do you have amassed? So if you make $100,000 a year in income and you spend $100,000 in expenses, then you have zero wealth. However, if you make 100K and you only spend 50K, then what that means is for every year you work, you spend 50 and you save 50. So 50 is 1 year's worth of living expenses, right? So for 1 year of working, you've saved up 1 year of wealth. Now, the best way that you can expand that is to increase your earning potential and to decrease your expenses. So if your living expenses, let's say in that previous example, was only $25,000, then if you were making 100K every year, then that means you're building up 3 years of wealth. So that means you could work for 1 year, right? That's 100K. You spend 25 that year. You put 75 into the bank. You could not work for the next 3 years and sustain your lifestyle. That's how I want you thinking about your expenses. Now, you need to cut ruthlessly and save as much as you possibly can, because the savings is what allows you to go after the outsized opportunities. It's what allows you to take risk. So the quicker you can get to the point where you have, say, $100,000 saved up in the bank, the quicker you can start taking risks. You can go after the next thing I'm going to tell you. But before I tell you what that is, I want to share my own personal example, because I told you about the van. But the thing that most people, I don't talk about this a lot, is that when I moved out of that van, I moved in with a buddy into his spare bedroom, into a house that had like 7 other people living in it. So I was, again, living dirt cheap in a really, really rough neighborhood of Oakland, right? So still super dirt cheap. From there, after I had already built a 7-figure business, the next business I was working on, we would scale to mid 7 figures in the span of only 3 years. I did that while living with my best friend's mom in her spare bedroom for $400 a month. So imagine this. I am a mid 30-year-old man who has now at this point a track record of success. I have money in the bank. I have assets. And I am building what would go on to be an 8-figure business while living with my best friend's mom. And I did that for like 2 or 3 years. A lot of people wouldn't be willing to do that. They'd be so embarrassed by that. Like, I'm functionally a middle-aged man living with my own mom, right? Like, there's no difference between my best friend's mom and my mom. But that's what you need to be in the mindset of if you want to get ahead in the money game, is that you're in the phase where you're stacking cash as much as possible so you can go and do the second thing in the equation, which is that you need to build a cash generating machine. The best cash generating machine that I know of is a business. It's not the only one, but whether you start your own business or you invest in businesses, that's through stocks or through angel investing, but owning a piece of equity in something that compounds and can grow, that is the key. And you can only do that if you have money to go after those opportunities. So what I did is I lived dirt cheap, I stacked cash, and then I poured all that cash into building my cash generating machines while living with my best friend's mom. And then once that machine started kicking off more cash than I knew what to do with, and I could no longer really spend it reasonably, just pouring it back into the business, I then took that and went to step 3, which was to invest that into income producing assets. So an income producing asset might be a piece of real estate. You buy the real estate, you have residents in it, they're putting off more cash flow than you have in expenses, huzzah, right? You could be buying stocks and bonds, it could be investing into whatever else, but investing in things that are producing cash flow on a monthly basis. That is the method here. So now we can take the income that's coming from these income producing assets, we can live off of that. And now we still have our cash generating machine, which is kicking off more money, which we pour into more assets, and that money comes in, and that's what we live off of. We don't live off of the money that our cash generating machine produces. We use that money to invest back into the business or into assets. And then we live off the assets, the income that's produced there. That's the flywheel. And the reason we do it this way is that we're never eating into the principal. We're living off of the excess. And if you can create a life where you're accustomed to just living off the excess that comes from your investments and not living off of the principal that is being generated in the form of income from your business, that is how you ultimately win the money game. And that's what I did. Just been doing it to larger and larger extents over the years. Take this plan. Think about how you can apply it to your own life. I would recommend, if you're not where you want to be financially, start by cutting your expenses ruthlessly, then looking, okay, how can I start building a cash generating machine that makes money when I'm sleeping, right? Because we need a way to have our machine compounding beyond just our own efforts. And then we take that money, we put it into something so that our money works harder for us than we work for it. And whiz, bang, boom, that's a 3-step process. Go forth and crush, my friend.